Hey guys, welcome to Revisionist History, a brand new show here on WatchMojo where we discuss things that could have happened. My name is Julian. I'm with Ash this week. This week we're going to talk about an important moment in NFL history. Drew Bledsoe, we remember him as the quarterback for the New England Patriots in the early 2000s. That wasn't until he got knocked out of a game. Tom Brady takes over for him, and he becomes the amazing quarterback that we know him to be now. The question we're going to be asking here is, what if Drew Bledsoe never got injured?
Gonna run it. Needs 10 yards. Oh, does he hit? Oh, my.
Let's get to these points here. We have our fancy hourglass here, and away we go. So let's get to the first point here. Drew Bledsoe, does he lead that Pats team to a Super Bowl?
So it's worth noting that he actually came back after getting injured in the AFC Championship game and led them to victory. Now, 2 weeks later, Brady got the start. The rest is history. I think under Bill Belichick, I mean, you got to bear in mind defense wins. Belichick won twice as a defensive coordinator with the Giants, and the quarterbacks were the great Phil Simms and then the awesome Jeff Hostetler. So I actually think that probably Belichick and Bledsoe would have been able to win one, maybe two, but clearly not the dominant decade that they had under Brady.
I don't know if he wins a Super Bowl. I think Drew Bledsoe was a favorite of the owner, Robert Kraft. Bill Belichick was obviously a fan of Brady. He drafted him. I think there's reason to believe that there's perhaps a chance where Bledsoe doesn't necessarily do well finishing off the year, and maybe even Bill Belichick gets fired the next year. I know it's a little hasty, but Robert Kraft, he gave up a lot for him. He gave up a lot for Bill Belichick to be the head coach, and he already has his little thing with Bill Parcells in the 90s as well. Maybe he's trying to get hasty. He's trying to get the team some success. But all that to say, Drew Bledsoe doesn't do that well in that year, and then next year maybe they sever ties with him and Belichick and all that. I don't think Bill Belichick stands around with him.
Fair enough, but I mean they had committed to a $100 million plus contract to Bledsoe, so I think ultimately the owner would have prevailed and Bledsoe would have stuck around. Possible, but the thing to note about Bledsoe is he actually had very good stats. Like, it wasn't just like a Ryan Leaf. I know Leaf was number 2 after Manning, but it wasn't like just this prospect that came out of college. He actually had amazing stats. Even the year after he went to the Bills, he put up some solid numbers. Now, we can agree to disagree there.
Right.
Fair enough.
I just have to take a game like this and go back and try and learn from the mistakes in this one, is the big thing. And then try not to make the same mistakes next week, is the big thing for me.
Point two?
Point two, does a Bill Belichick-led team have anywhere near the same level of success with any other QB? I want to answer this first. I think that if Bill Belichick gets the guy that he wants there, and you put the defensive players that he has in place. They had Lawyer Malloy before they cut him, I believe, in 2004. Ty Law, Willie McGinnis, Mike Vrabel, Teddy Bruschi. That defense was so good. Top ranked in 2003, second top ranked in 2004. There's reason to believe that Bill Belichick puts a good quarterback in front. There's a reason. I think the Patriots win.
Nobody is disputing that the Bucks won, the Ravens won, defense wins championships. It's a cliche for a reason. I think the issue is not does Bill Belichick win with anybody. Trent Dilfer won with the Ravens.
Yeah.
So I mean, anything is Jeff Hostetler, right? Like anybody could win under the right system. I ultimately think, as much as Belichick is this genius, Brady was this clutch quarterback, 6th round. Coming out of nowhere, just really cool, calm, and collected, a bit like Montana a decade before him. Right. Just had this kind of X factor. So I actually think, separate tracks, Belichick may win 2 with another quarterback. I think Brady would have won 3 or 4 under another coach. Now, not on a Bengals team type of thing, but like with a decent team, decent coach, I think Brady just has this X factor, this killer instinct. So I think in the end, Brady would have had the more successful career without Belichick than vice versa.
It's the system. I really think that because of how good the Patriots defense was in those, especially for those first few Super Bowls, where yes, Brady was clutch in certain moments, but it's really the defense that really prevailed. I think that if you put another great quarterback in front, Belichick definitely. But I also think
you're crazy.
But I also think Brady. But I also think, and you mentioned this, quarterbacks, depending on the system that they're in, they could see success, they could flounder. Tom Brady on a Buffalo Bills team, how well do you think he really does?
Well, unlike Jim Kelly, he would have won one of those Super Bowls. That's what I mean. He would have probably won 2 or 3.
It depends on the pieces around him.
No,
and the defenses as well, right?
Thurman Thomas and like
Okay,
Andre Reed.
whoa. We're not talking about 92.
No,
we're
okay,
not talking about
yes,
the 90s.
yes, okay.
We're talking about.
But we're saying a team. Like, don't put him on the Bills, but like you put him on the Steelers, he wins more than like the Steelers did possibly because he's just that clutch. Now, again, I think you're crazy.
Systems and teams.
Of course, but 5 Super Bowls, Charles Haley is the only dude who's done it with 2 teams, Niners and Cowboys. Tom Brady's done it with 1 team. That says something about Tom Brady. Ultimately, he's the guy on the pitch, not the guy on the sidelines.
Yes,
but that's just me.
But that being said, and we'll give all due respect to Brady for the last 2 Super Bowls because he had to come through in the clutch. But those first few, it was the defense.
Good players can't overcome bad coaching. It's impossible.
Does Peyton Manning do well with Bill Belichick?
Okay, this might sound controversial. I actually think Manning wins less than 5. I know Manning is technically the better quarterback, but again, that X factor, that clutch factor, Manning does not have a 5 out of 8 win percentage in the Super Bowl, right? I think ultimately Brady is the guy.
Okay.
Who wins more?
So Brady may win more, I might give you that, but Peyton Manning wins like 3 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots.
3, I'll give you 3.
There's no debate about that. And I also think that we call Peyton Manning the GOAT. We call Peyton Manning the GOAT. And it doesn't matter if Joe Montana has more Super Bowls because everyone looks at Peyton Manning's mind and everyone looks at how he does all those audibles off the snap before. Like, Peyton Manning is looked at as the definitive GOAT.
Louisville Soul Train. Louisville Soul Train. They're purple. Purple Buddha Raiders.
My final point, we're out of time.
Yes.
This is my shot in the end zone. So I actually agree with you on that. I think even if Manning wins less than Brady's 5, I do believe that Manning just being the prototype of the ideal quarterback, that's all he does. It's plausible that his numbers are just so off the chart combined with that defense. You saw what he did with the Broncos. Sure, Brady may not be the greatest of all time because without Belichick, is more that my point, without Belichick, Brady may still only win 3. Fair enough, but I still ultimately think that in that debate, Brady does have the X factor.
Well, we are out of time. So says the hourglass.
Hey, don't worry about if we got to make an adjustment on it. These guys need to be able to do that.
Ash, I can't thank you enough for joining us on this week's episode. What do you think would have happened if Drew Bledsoe never got injured? And what are some other topics you want to see us discuss in Revisionist History? Write them in the comments here, and we may even get to them. Thank you all so much for watching this week's episode. See you all next time.